The silent plea. The crystal spires of Verita caught the light of their dying sun, sending rainbow fractals across the evacuated streets of their capital city. First Minister Lyra, her crystalline form dimming with each passing cycle, stood before the emergency broadcast array, sending what she feared would be their final distress signal into the void. This is First Minister Lyra of the Veritan Confederation. Our civilization faces extinction. The Nexus Collective's warships orbit our worlds, their quantum cannons destroying everything they touch. We are a peaceful species. We have no weapons to match theirs. If anyone receives this message, please, we need help. The message rippled across space, bouncing between relay stations, most of them ignoring what they considered another doomed species' last words. But on the edges of Earth's solar system, on Deep Space Monitoring Station Omega, Commander Daria Volkov floated in the zero-gravity communications hub, her dark eyes fixed on the signal analysis. "Play it again, Sentinel," she commanded the station's AI. As the message repeated, Daria's hands moved across the holographic interface, breaking down the signal's components. The Veritan's voice carried something she recognized, not just fear, but dignity in the face of annihilation. It reminded her of humanity's own history, of cities under siege, of people facing overwhelming odds. "Sentinel, compile all available data on the Veritan Confederation and the Nexus Collective. Priority on military capabilities, technological levels, and cultural analysis." The AI's response was immediate. The Veritans, crystal-based silicon life forms. Technological level, advanced in quantum computing and faster-than-light communications. Military strength, minimal. Primary achievements in arts, mathematics, and peaceful exploration. And the Nexus Collective? A coalition of cybernetically enhanced species. Highly aggressive. Technology based on quantum manipulation. Current territory, 47 star systems, all acquired through conquest. Military doctrine, total subjugation or extinction of inferior species. Daria's jaw tightened. She had seen this pattern before in humanity's own bloody history. The strong preying on the weak, justifying genocide with claims of superiority. Her fingers flew across the interface, preparing a priority transmission to Earth Command. "Commander," Sentinel interrupted, "Protocol 7 Alpha requires non-intervention in conflicts between alien civilizations unless Earth's security is directly threatened. Note my override, Sentinel. This isn't about protocols. This is about preventing another Holocaust." The transmission went out, racing toward Earth at superluminal speeds. In her attached message, Daria included something the protocols didn't account for: the emotional impact. She highlighted the dignity in Lyra's voice, the civilization's achievements in art and mathematics, their contribution to the galaxy's cultural tapestry. Hours passed as she waited for a response. The station's recycled air felt heavy with anticipation. When the reply came, it was not what she had hoped for. Request for intervention denied. Maintain observation only. Earth Council cannot risk conflict with the Nexus Collective at this time. Daria read the message 3 times, her frustration growing with each pass. She thought of humanity's own history, of times when people stood by while others were destroyed. Of all species in the galaxy, humans knew best the cost of silence in the face of genocide. "Sentinel, open a secure channel to Admiral Marcus Singh. Personal authorization code, Volkov Delta 9. Warning, contacting military command outside official channels violates." Override accepted, Daria cut in. "And Sentinel?" This conversation never happened. The holographic display shimmered, revealing the weathered face of Admiral Singh. His dark eyes, set in a face marked by decades of service, showed immediate concern at the unofficial contact. "Commander Volkov, this is unexpected. Admiral, I'm sending you a transmission. Before you say anything, just listen." She played Lyra's message, watching Singh's expression change as he heard the dignity in the alien's plea. When it finished, she spoke quickly, knowing she was committing career suicide but unable to stay silent. "Sir, I know the Council's decision. I also know that humanity swore never again after our own dark times. We can't let this happen. Not when we have the power to stop it." Singh was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke, his voice carrying the weight of command and something more, conviction. "The Council's decision is politically motivated. They fear the Collective's technology. But they forget what makes humanity strong." He paused, a slight smile crossing his face. "Tell me, Commander, how would you feel about taking an extended leave of absence? Say, starting now?" Daria understood immediately. "I have been working hard lately. A break would do me good." "Excellent. I hear the Centauri colonies are lovely this time of year. Of course, if you happen to share certain coordinates with some old friends of mine before you left." He let the sentence hang. "Understood, Admiral. And thank you." As the transmission ended, Daria began composing her leave request. She knew what would happen next. Singh would contact others who shared their convictions. Retired captains with ships they'd forgotten to decommission. Special Forces operators who believed in fighting for more than just humanity's interests. They would come together quietly, without official sanction, carrying humanity's real strength, not its technology or weapons, but its unwavering determination to stand against tyranny. As she prepared to leave the station, Daria looked one last time at the signal analysis of Lyra's plea. "Hold on," she whispered to the distant crystalline beings. "Help is coming. Not because of treaties or protocols, but because it's right." The Nexus Collective was about to learn what humanity had learned long ago, that true strength lies not in superior firepower, but in the willingness to stand up for others, even at great cost to oneself. Breaking protocol. The Centauri shipyards had been officially decommissioned for 5 years, their massive docking arrays supposedly stripped and sold for scrap. Yet as Admiral Marcus Singh's personal shuttle approached, the supposedly abandoned facility hummed with activity. Hidden behind sensor bafflers and holographic debris fields, ships of various classes and configurations floated in the void, their running lights dimmed but their engines warm. Lieutenant Octavia Reed stood at the viewport of her retrofitted destroyer, the Audacity, watching the Admiral's approach. Her dark hands moved swiftly across the tactical display, making final adjustments to the unconventional modifications she'd implemented. 20 years as a naval engineer had taught her that sometimes the best solutions weren't the most advanced ones. Power reading stable at 60%, her second-in-command, Trevor Walsh, reported. "Though I still think you're crazy for replacing the quantum targeting systems with analog backups." Octavia allowed herself a small smile. The Nexus Collective's entire defense network relies on quantum entanglement. They'll be expecting ships running similar technology. Sometimes the best way to surprise an advanced enemy is to take a step backward. The ship's intercom crackled. "All command staff report to Briefing Room 7. Priority Alpha." In the briefing room, Admiral Singh stood before a gathering of 30 ship captains and their senior officers. The light from the holographic display cast deep shadows across his face as he activated the tactical overview. "Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm about to propose is technically an act of treason. Anyone who wishes to leave now may do so. Your silence is assured." He paused, but no one moved. "Very well. 12 hours ago, we received this transmission." The room fell silent as First Minister Lyra's plea echoed through the speakers. When it ended, Singh continued, his voice carrying the weight of decades of command. "The United Earth Council has ordered non-intervention. They fear the Nexus Collective's technological superiority. But they forget that humanity didn't reach the stars through superior technology. We got here through sheer bloody-minded determination and the willingness to try the impossible. He gestured to Octavia. Lieutenant Reed has developed a battle strategy that plays to our strengths. Lieutenant? Octavia stepped forward, her heart pounding but her voice steady. The collective relies heavily on quantum-based weapons and defenses. Their systems are designed to counter similar technology. But they've never faced an enemy using retrofitted analog systems and 20th-century electronic warfare techniques. The tactical display shifted, showing her modifications. We've stripped our ships of quantum targeting and replaced them with traditional fire control systems. Our communication arrays now include old-fashioned radio backup. Yes, it's slower, but it's also impossible for them to hack or jam. Murmurs of surprise and skepticism rippled through the room. Captain Nikolai Petrov, a veteran of the Mars campaigns, raised his hand. You're suggesting we fight a technologically superior enemy with outdated equipment? I'm suggesting we fight them with equipment they won't expect and can't counter, Octavia replied. Their quantum shields are useless against kinetic weapons. Their AI targeting systems can be confused by simple chaff and flares. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Admiral Singh nodded approvingly. We've assembled a fleet of 40 ships, crewed by volunteers who believe in doing what's right rather than what's authorized. We launch in 6 hours. This mission doesn't officially exist. If we fail, Earth will disavow all knowledge of our actions. If we succeed. He smiled grimly. Well, success has a way of changing political perspectives. As the briefing continued, Octavia's mind raced with final calculations and contingencies. Her modifications were untested in actual combat, based more on historical tactics than modern doctrine. But there was a certain poetry to it, using humanity's past to secure another species' future. Commander James Rodriguez, captain of the heavy cruiser Defiant, approached her after the briefing. Your ideas are either brilliant or suicidal, Lieutenant. Possibly both. History is full of examples of technically inferior forces defeating superior ones, she replied. The collective expects everyone to fight like them. That's their weakness. And what's our weakness? Octavia looked through the viewport at the assembled fleet, a mix of retired military vessels and converted civilian ships, all modified according to her specifications. We don't have one. Because our strength isn't in our ships or our weapons. It's in knowing that we're fighting for something bigger than ourselves. The next 6 hours passed in a blur of final preparations. Engineers worked frantically to implement Octavia's modifications across the fleet. Weapon systems were recalibrated, shield frequencies adjusted, communication protocols revised. Every ship had to be able to function without relying on quantum technology, a step backward that might prove to be their greatest leap forward. Admiral Singh's final message to the fleet was brief but powerful. What we do today, we do not for glory or recognition. We do it because centuries ago, humanity learned the cost of standing idle while genocide occurred. The Veritans asked for help. Today, we answer. As the fleet prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed, Octavia stood at her tactical station on the Audacity, watching the synchronized countdown. Her modifications would either prove to be a stroke of genius or their doom. But as she thought of First Minister Lyra's plea, she knew it didn't matter. They had to try. All ships report ready, Trevor announced. FTL drives spooled and synchronized. Admiral Singh's voice came through the old-style radio channel, clear and strong. Remember, we're not just fighting for the Veritans. We're fighting to prove that in this galaxy, there are still those who will stand up for what's right. Jump on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. The fleet vanished into FTL, leaving behind empty space and plausible deniability. They carried with them not just weapons and shields, but something the Nexus Collective couldn't understand and therefore couldn't counter, the human spirit of resistance against tyranny, and the determination to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. As the stars streaked past her viewport, Octavia whispered a prayer her grandmother had taught her: "Guide our hands, steady our hearts, and let us be worthy of the task before us." The battle for Verita was about to begin, and with it, perhaps, a new chapter in galactic history. The first strike. The human fleet emerged from FTL on the outer edge of the Veritan system, their retrofitted engines pulsing with a dull red glow. Captain Jun Nakamura of the assault carrier Redemption stood at the command center, his weathered face illuminated by the tactical displays showing the Nexus Collective's invasion fleet, 60 vessels of gleaming quantum metal, arranged in perfect geometric formations. "They're beautiful, in a terrifying way," remarked his tactical officer, Lieutenant Diana Frost, her fingers dancing across the old-style control panel. "Like a swarm of metallic predators." June nodded, studying the enemy's positioning. 2 decades of naval warfare had taught him to read an opponent's psychology from their formation. The Collective's ships were arranged with mathematical precision, each vessel maintaining exact distances from its neighbors. It spoke of an almost obsessive need for order and control. "Too perfect," he murmured. "They've forgotten that chaos is the natural state of battle." "Signal the fleet, implement Operation Thunderbolt." Across the human fleet, crews rushed to their stations. The plan they'd practiced was unorthodox, even by human standards. Instead of maintaining formation, each ship would operate independently, following general objectives rather than strict tactical protocols. The Collective noticed their arrival instantly. A transmission burst across all frequencies, the artificial voice carrying notes of both superiority and confusion. "Unidentified fleet, this is Nexus Collective Command. Your presence is unauthorized. Your technology is primitive. Withdraw immediately or face annihilation." June allowed himself a small smile. "Send our response, Lieutenant. Radio only, no quantum channels." Diana flipped a switch on her vintage communication panel. June's voice carried across space, riding waves of electromagnetic radiation that the Collective had long since abandoned as obsolete. "This is Captain Nakamura of the Earth Defense Force. We're here to answer a distress call. You are hereby ordered to withdraw from Veritan space." The response was immediate. Quantum weapons flared to life across the Collective fleet, their targeting systems seeking the quantum signatures they were calibrated to destroy. But the human ships were running dark, their systems analog, their signatures more like 20th-century vessels than modern warships. "All ships, execute random walk pattern," June commanded. "Let's show them how humans dance." The human fleet exploded into motion, each ship following unpredictable trajectories that defied the Collective's targeting algorithms. The Redemption shuddered as June's helmsman, Sergio Ramirez, pushed the engines beyond their rated limits, the ship corkscrewing through space in ways that would have made their original designers blanch. The first exchange of fire proved Lieutenant Reed's theories correct. The Collective's quantum weapons, designed to bypass modern shields through dimensional manipulation, passed harmlessly through space where human ships had been microseconds before. Their targeting systems, expecting a quantum-encrypted evasion patterns, couldn't adjust to the seemingly random movements of their opponents. "Launch fighters," June ordered. "Tell them to stick to the plan, no heroics, just controlled chaos." Squadrons of retrofitted fighters erupted from the Redemption's launch bays. Instead of the latest quantum drives, they ran on modified chemical engines. Their weapons were simple mass drivers and unguided rockets, technology that hadn't seen military use in 50 years. The Collective's response was predictable. Their point defense systems, designed to track and destroy smart missiles and quantum-guided projectiles, struggled to target weapons that followed basic ballistic trajectories. The first wave of human fighters broke through their defensive screen, launching salvos of kinetic penetrators that punched through quantum shields as if they weren't there. "First blood to us," Diana reported, her voice tense with excitement. 3 Collective vessels showing critical damage. Their formations are breaking up. On the tactical display, June watched the perfect geometric patterns of the collective fleet dissolve into more organic arrangements. They were adapting, but adaptation meant abandoning their doctrine, their certainty. It meant fighting on human terms. All ships, press the advantage, he commanded. Close to knife-fighting range. Don't give them time to regroup. The space between the fleets became a chaos of light and shadow. Human ships darted through the gaps in collective formations, firing ancient weapons that struck with devastating effect. Railgun rounds tore through quantum-hardened hulls. Electronic warfare suites, based on principles centuries old, played havoc with the collective's advanced sensors. But the enemy was far from helpless. A quantum lance struck the cruiser Defiant, the beam passing through multiple dimensions to emerge inside the ship's engine room. The vessel exploded, its crew having barely time to transmit their final coordinates. "We've lost the Defiant," Diana reported, her voice tight. "The collective is adapting their weapon frequencies." June gripped the railing of his command station. "Signal all ships, implement Phase 2. Let's show them why humanity survived its own wars." Across the fleet, hidden panels opened in ship hulls. Clouds of metallic chaff, similar to what aircraft had used in Earth's Second World War, bloomed in space. The simple strips of metal, cut to specific lengths, created a storm of false radar returns and confused the collective's quantum sensors. In the confusion, human ships pressed closer, turning the battle into a brawl. The collective's advanced targeting systems became increasingly useless as the range closed to point blank. Ships fired at targets they could see with optical sensors, returning space combat to an almost nautical level. The Redemption shuddered as a glancing hit struck their port side. "Hull breach on Deck 4, Diana reported. "Emergency teams responding." "Captain, the collective's flagship is breaking formation." June studied the tactical display. The enemy flagship, a massive vessel bristling with quantum weaponry, was indeed retreating, its perfect geometric formation abandoned in favor of survival. Other collective ships began to follow suit, their movements becoming increasingly erratic. "They're not used to bleeding," June observed. "Signal all ships, maintain pursuit but don't overextend. We're not here to destroy them, just to prove they can be fought." As the collective fleet retreated to regroup, June allowed himself a moment to survey the battlefield. The human fleet had suffered losses, 3 ships destroyed, several others damaged. But they had achieved something unprecedented. They had fought the Nexus Collective to a standstill using technology centuries behind their enemies. "Send a message to Admiral Singh," he ordered. "First engagement successful. The collective bleeds like anyone else." Diana's fingers flew across her console, but she paused to look up at her captain. "Sir, do you think they understand yet? What they've stumbled into?" June watched the collective ships disappear into FTL, their retreat lacking the precision of their arrival. "They're beginning to." They thought they were facing primitive technology. Instead, they're facing humanity at its most fundamental, adaptable, unpredictable, and absolutely unwilling to back down. The battle for Verita was far from over, but the first strike had proven what Admiral Singh and Lieutenant Reed had believed, that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't its technology, but its ability to think differently, to adapt, and to fight with everything it had, no matter the odds. As damage control teams worked to repair the Redemption's wounds, June began planning the next phase of the battle. The collective would return, probably with reinforcements. But they would return knowing something they hadn't known before, that their technological superiority wasn't enough to guarantee victory. Not against humans who had turned their own limitations into advantages, and who fought not for conquest or glory, but for the simple belief that standing against tyranny was worth any cost. Guardians of Crystal. The crystalline towers of Verita's capital glinted in the pre-dawn light as Commander Rashid Hassan led his drop team through the underground tunnels. Their footsteps echoed off walls that seemed to pulse with their own inner light, casting rainbow shadows across their tactical gear. Behind them, a group of Veritan civilians followed, their crystalline forms dimmed with fear but glowing with increasing curiosity. "Your bodies," one of them, who had introduced himself as Scholar Ven, spoke softly. "They are so fragile. Yet you move with such purpose." Rashid adjusted his rifle, the old-style projectile weapon feeling reassuring in his hands. "Fragility can be a strength, Scholar Ven. It teaches us to be careful, to be clever. To find ways around obstacles rather than trying to power through them." The tunnel network had become their greatest advantage in the ground war. While the Nexus Collective's forces controlled the surface with their quantum-powered battle machines, the humans and Veritans moved beneath, striking from unexpected angles and vanishing before retaliation could come. "Contact front," Lieutenant Sofia Mendoza whispered through the tactical network. "Collective patrol, 200 meters ahead. 3 walkers, standard complement." Rashid raised his fist, signaling the team to halt. The Veritan civilians, who had learned human hand signals with remarkable speed, immediately pressed themselves against the tunnel walls, their crystalline bodies dimming to near invisibility. "Remember your training," Rashid spoke to his team. "Their quantum sensors can't penetrate these crystal walls. We have the element of surprise." The team moved forward silently, deploying to pre-planned positions. They had learned that the Collective's walkers, while formidable, had a critical weakness: their pilots relied too heavily on advanced targeting systems and couldn't adapt quickly to old-fashioned ambush tactics. "Charges set," Corporal Jackson reported, her voice barely a whisper. She had placed simple electromagnetic pulse devices, technology that predated quantum computing, at strategic points. Rashid waited until the walkers were directly above them. Now. The EMPs detonated simultaneously. Above them, the walkers stumbled as their quantum systems crashed, reduced temporarily to mere mechanical constructs. Before they could reboot, shaped charges blew holes in the street above, and Rashid's team emerged like phantoms from the ground. The battle was brief but intense. The Collective soldiers, used to fighting from within their machines, found themselves faced with humans who excelled at close-quarter combat. Rashid's team moved with practiced efficiency, disabling the walkers permanently before their systems could reset. What happened next surprised even Rashid. The Veritan civilians, led by Scholar Ven, emerged from the tunnels not to flee but to help. Their crystalline bodies, which could absorb and redirect energy, proved excellent at containing the quantum discharge from the disabled walkers. "You see?" Rashid said to Ven as they secured the area. "Being physically fragile doesn't mean being weak. It means finding different ways to be strong." Over the next few hours, more Veritans joined them, learning basic combat techniques with an eagerness that belied their peaceful nature. They weren't natural warriors, but they were quick learners, and their unique physical properties offered advantages no one had expected. "Commander," Sophia called out, "you need to see this." Rashid found her working with a group of Veritans who had discovered they could form living shields, their crystalline bodies refracting the Collective's quantum beams harmlessly into the ground. It wasn't a perfect defense, but combined with human tactical knowledge, it was changing the nature of the ground war. "We were wrong," Ven said, his crystalline form pulsing with newfound confidence. "We thought our physical nature made us unsuited for conflict. But you've shown us that true strength lies in adaptation, in using what others see as weaknesses as advantages." The conversation was interrupted by a priority transmission from Orbital Command. Admiral Singh's voice crackled through their comms, "Ground forces, be advised. Collective reinforcements have arrived in system. Prepare for heavy resistance." Rashid gathered his team and their Veritan allies. "This is what we've trained for. The Collective thinks in straight lines, in perfect formations. We'll show them what happens when crystals and humans work together to create chaos." They spent the next hours preparing the city for defense. The Veritans, understanding their home's architecture perfectly, helped create killing zones and ambush points. Human combat engineers set up old-style manual weapons alongside crystalline energy redirectors. As the sun set, casting long shadows through the crystal towers, Rashid watched his mixed force of humans and Veritans prepare for battle. The collective's drop ships would be coming soon, bringing their supposedly superior forces to bear. They still don't understand, do they? Sophia asked, checking her weapon one last time. No, Rashid replied. They think superiority comes from having the most advanced technology. They don't understand that real strength comes from here. He tapped his chest. From being willing to stand up, no matter the odds. A distant rumbling signaled the approach of collective forces. Rashid switched to the general frequency, addressing all defenders, human and Veritan alike. Remember, we're not fighting because we're stronger. We're fighting because we refuse to let tyranny win. Every time they think they have us figured out, we'll show them something new. Every time they think we're beaten, we'll rise again. Because that's what life does, it adapts, it evolves, it endures. The first collective drop ships appeared in the darkening sky, their quantum drives humming with deadly purpose. But below, in the crystal city's shadowed streets and glowing tunnels, an alliance of the fragile and the crystalline waited, ready to prove that true strength comes in many forms. Scholar Ven, now wearing modified human combat gear over his crystalline form, spoke softly but with conviction, "We may break, but like your human glass, we will break sharp. Let them come." Rashid nodded, pride swelling in his chest as he watched humans and Veritans take their positions, each complementing the other's strengths, each covering the other's weaknesses. The collective was about to learn that they hadn't just attacked a peaceful species, they had helped forge a new kind of army, one that combined human determination with Veritan resilience. The battle for the Crystal City was about to begin, and with it, perhaps, a new chapter in the history of both species. Dawn of Unity. First Minister Lyra stood in the crystalline command center, her form glowing with renewed vigor as she watched the tactical displays. The combined human Veritan defense force had held the Crystal City for 3 days against increasingly desperate collective attacks. But now, as the system's sun rose on the 4th day, the final battle was approaching. "They're gathering their entire fleet," Admiral Singh's hologram reported, his weathered face showing both concern and determination. 200 ships, including designs we haven't seen before. "They mean to end this today. Then we will meet them with everything we have," Lyra responded, her voice carrying the strength she had learned from her human allies. Around her, Veritan controllers worked alongside human tactical officers, their different forms moving in practiced harmony. Lieutenant Octavia Reed's voice cut through the command channel. "Admiral, the modifications are ready. Every Veritan crystal tower has been converted into a signal amplifier. If this works..." "It will work," interrupted Scholar Ven, his crystalline form pulsing with purpose. "Our cities were built to channel energy. We simply never imagined using them this way." The plan was audacious, combining human tactical innovation with Veritan crystal technology. The entire city had been transformed into what Commander Hassan had called the biggest electronic warfare platform in history. In orbit, Captain Nakamura's fleet took position, their ships arranged not in traditional formations but in patterns that mimicked the crystalline structures below. The Redemption, still bearing scars from previous battles, led the line. "All ships, this is Admiral Singh. The collective believes they have us outgunned and outnumbered. They're right. But they're fighting to destroy. We're fighting to protect. Remember that difference." The collective fleet emerged from FTL in perfect formation, their quantum drives creating a web of distorted space. Their transmission was predictably arrogant. "Primitive species, your resistance has been noted and analyzed. It is futile. Surrender now, and your destruction will be quick." In the Crystal City below, Lyra exchanged glances with Commander Hassan. The grizzled human soldier nodded, a slight smile on his face. Give them your answer, First Minister. Lyra's voice, carried through both quantum channels and old-style radio, rang with authority. We reject your demand. The Veritan people choose to stand with humanity. We choose to fight. The collective's response was immediate and overwhelming. Quantum beams lanced out, their energy warping space itself. But this time, something was different. The crystal towers of the city began to pulse with inner light, each structure acting as part of a vast energy web. Now, Lieutenant Reed. Admiral Singh commanded. Octavia's voice was tense with concentration. Activating citywide electromagnetic pulse, modified by Veritan crystal harmonics. All ships switched to backup systems, now. The crystal city blazed with light, each tower amplifying and redirecting the electromagnetic pulse. The wave expanded outward, its effect magnified by the crystalline structures in ways that defied conventional physics. In orbit, the human fleet had already switched to their retrofitted analog systems. The effect on the collective fleet was devastating. Their quantum-based technology, so advanced and powerful, proved catastrophically vulnerable to this combination of primitive human electronics and Veritan crystal technology. Ships tumbled out of formation as their systems crashed, quantum weapons sputtering into silence. All ships, execute attack pattern Sierra, Captain Nakamura commanded. Close to point-blank range. Don't give them time to recover. The human fleet surged forward, their analog systems unaffected by the pulse. Railguns and conventional missiles struck quantum-armored hulls now stripped of their defensive fields. On the surface, Commander Hassan led mixed teams of humans and Veritans in attacks on grounded collective forces, their combined tactics proving lethal against the confused enemy. In the command center, Lyra watched as the battle turned. The collective's perfectly ordered formations had dissolved into chaos. Their attempts to regroup were met with precise strikes from ships that seemed to anticipate their every move. They're retreating, Admiral Singh announced, his hologram showing the first smile anyone had seen from him. Multiple ships jumping to FTL. Their command structure is breaking down. The collective's retreat quickly became a rout. Ships fled in all directions, their once perfect coordination shattered. Those that remained were quickly disabled or destroyed by the combined human Veritan force. As the last enemy ships disappeared into FTL, a moment of silence fell over the command center. It was Scholar Ven who broke it, his crystalline form glowing with an emotion that had no name in either human or Veritan language. We did not merely survive, he said softly. We proved something far more important. We proved that true strength lies not in technological superiority, but in the willingness to stand together, to adapt, to fight for what is right. The victory celebration was subdued, tempered by the knowledge of lives lost and the understanding that the collective would eventually return. But something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. The Nexus Collective's aura of invincibility was broken, and more importantly, a new kind of alliance had been forged. 1 week later, in the Great Crystal Hall of the Veritan capital, First Minister Lyra and Admiral Singh signed a formal treaty. It was not just a military alliance, but a commitment to sharing knowledge, to learning from each other's strengths, to standing together against any force that threatened freedom in the galaxy. The collective thought they were superior because they had the most advanced technology, Admiral Singh said during the ceremony. But they forgot something crucial. The greatest technology in the universe is worthless without the will to use it wisely, the courage to stand for what's right, and the wisdom to know that true strength comes from unity, not dominance. Lyra's response embodied the change that had come over her people. We were a peaceful species, and we remain one. But now we understand that peace must sometimes be defended. The humans did not simply save us, they taught us how to save ourselves. As the ceremony concluded, Commander Hassan found himself standing with Scholar Ven on a balcony overlooking the Crystal City. The setting sun caught the towers, sending rainbow refractions across the sky. Your people have changed us, Ven observed. And we have changed you. Hassan nodded. That's what real strength is. Not crushing others, but learning from them. Growing together. In orbit, Lieutenant Reed watched the celebration from the Audacity's viewport. The ship's analog systems, once considered primitive, had proven that sometimes the old ways were still valuable. It was a lesson the galaxy wouldn't soon forget. The human fleet would soon return home, but they would leave behind more than just defenders. They would leave hope that in a galaxy of quantum weapons and perfect formations, there was still room for courage, innovation, and the simple determination to stand against tyranny. And in the vast darkness between the stars, word began to spread. The Nexus Collective was not invincible. The supposedly weak could become strong. And humanity, that young, primitive species, had proven that sometimes the greatest victories come not from superior technology, but from the simple willingness to stand up for what's right.